Hi, if you're between the ages of 16 and 24, then I want you to know that this video is about you. This video is about you if you're currently doing year 12 or year 11, if you're thinking about leaving school, if you're about to start a new job, if you're about to go to university, if you're about to move out of home, if you're about to move back home, if you're about to start an apprenticeship, if you're about to start a part-time job or start at TAFE, then this video is about you. There's probably a million other things that you might want to be doing at this point in time, but I promise you, if you watch this, there's something in it for you. If you're the parent, carer, mentor, employer, teacher or lecturer of a young person or young people, then it wouldn't hurt you to take a look either. There could be something in it for you as well. I'm Dennis Bills, and this video is the first in a series of videos about the transition of young people between secondary school and work, training or study, or moving out of home, or going overseas, or whatever. I'll be posting all of these vlogs that I'll be doing over the next few months on my website, www.life-skills.com.au. The word transition usually refers to the period in a young person's life that begins towards the end of their secondary education and continues on as they undertake the move out into work, training or study and lasts right up until they get ongoing employment or eventually get ongoing employment. The transitions for my generation sometimes only lasted days, weeks or months. The transition for this current cohort can last 3 or 4 years before the young people find where they're meant to be, get into a regular money earning position. And that's why it's viewed as such a critical period in a young person's life. So this topic of transition was the driving force behind a post-secondary transition concept that I designed quite a few years ago now, and the aim of that was to help more young people to make successful transitions, but also to give them more options in this space. So I wrote a book about transition, and that book, and I started writing it when I was in business and employed a lot of young people at one particular time, and I was worried about how they were managing themselves. And they were concerned too that there were so many things they didn't have a complete grasp of. So I started writing it like an instruction manual, a guide for young people. It ended up being a book. The book was published and it was called Don't Leave Home Without One, a Home Leaver Survival Guide. It's been quite a few years since that book went out of print. I'm now in the process of writing a second book. It's called Lessons in Life, From Secondary School to Independence, a Practical Guide to Transition. And it is written as a direct result of my concerns about the transitions of young people into work, training or study, and it's close to being complete. So my aim over the next few months is to provide young people with as much information as I can about the changes that they might be experiencing in their lives at the moment, or that they may experience in the lead up to going away to university or to TAFE or to start a new apprenticeship, because here we are in the midst of that sort of transition period, the new year of 2022. In this current climate though, I know that I also need to be more proactive in this space than I've been in recent times. So rather than just write my book and put it out with a publisher and see what happens, I'm going to continue to release these vlogs for the next few months on many of the life issues relating to young people and the experiences that they're currently going through, which I know it isn't easy at the best of times, but it hasn't been easy at all during this period of COVID. And since I've never done this sort of thing before, you'll have to bear with me and make allowances for any of my discrepancies as I go along, but I'll do my best. Did you know that after year 12 is done and dusted each year, by about mid-March the following year, about a third of the year 12 graduates still don't know what they're going to do with themselves? 1 in 5 graduates will also drop out in their first year of uni, and depending on the trade they choose, up to half the apprentices that start won't finish their training. If you add to that youth unemployment is more than double regular mainstream unemployment, and it gets worse the further you move away from the cities, or if you're Indigenous, then it sounds like a tragic story. But the real truth is that it's been this way for about as long as I can remember. And it was one of the shocking unemployment figures of around 15, 20 years ago were one of the main instigators of why I actually sort of ventured into this field. So youth unemployment and underemployment, they were already quite a significant issue long before COVID-19 struck, with a lot of young people more than 5 times more likely than the average person to be unemployed or underemployed or completely disengaged from job search or study options. But once you throw COVID-19 into the mix, it gets even worse still. There's been a great deal of anxiety all round because of COVID across all age groups, all industries, but for young people it's been particularly stressful and could even have some far-reaching consequences in regard to the mental health of our young people, and I'm sure it already is. There's been young people that have had their university degrees interrupted, their TAFE courses, their apprenticeships and traineeships. Also a lot of young people that lost their jobs for periods of time or perhaps permanently. In reality though, the onset of COVID has only amplified some circumstances that were already in play. But if you combine this new situation with the fact that young people have always been the last to be employed and are also always the first to be laid off when economic conditions take a turn for the worse, then it makes sense that the real consequences of COVID-19 on the lives of our young will continue to play out for quite a few years to come. My original concerns about the difficulties that too many of our young people were confronted by after they left school led me to write my first book on the topic, and it was eventually published. I started writing it in the early 2000s. It was eventually published in 2008. As a follow-up to that, I then started work on a post-secondary transition concept, which I called transition to work, training or study, whereby each and every young school leaver would always have the option of completing what I designed as a Certificate 3 in transitional education, either through their local secondary school over 2 terms as a Year 13 option, followed by an extensive and wage-based work experience placement, or as an intensive 12-week TAFE-based certification, once again the Certificate 3 in transitional education, also followed by an extensive and wage-based work experience placement. So I wrote that paper and I sent a copy of it to every politician in the country. And you can only imagine the outcome. Did I change the world? Well, hardly. Did I make an impact? I doubt it. So what's changed since? Well, not much has changed. The government, ironically, a few months after I sent my paper out to almost every politician in the country, the federal government at the time released their own transition to work concept, which had so many similarities to the paper that I'd written that it was hard to walk past without noticing. But it was also the transition to work concept that they released was so watered down and so stripped back, it was barely worth the effort, in my humble opinion. So what's changed since? Not much. The world has only gotten faster and faster for young people, or for all of us. But more kids seem to be stressed now than have been for ever before. Money is still tight for young people. Even though Gen Xers and baby boomers tend to have a habit of looking down their noses at young people and saying, in my day, things were much tougher, you know the story. But money is pretty tight. They may have enough money to buy, cheap Chinese imports in clothing and footwear and some bits and pieces, but it's pretty tough for young people to purchase a car, to get enough money together to purchase a car. It's pretty tough for young people to get enough money together to move out of home, and it's absolutely near impossible for young people to get enough money together for the deposit on a house in this current market. And more parents than ever before are worried about their young adult children as well. When my first book was published, a journalist from an Adelaide newspaper named Jeff Roach said that it should be gifted to every school leaver in the country. And I thought it was a nice thing for him to say at the time, but I probably should have listened to him as well. And that's why my second book, which is going to be called Lessons in Life, From Secondary School to Independence, A Practical Guide to Transition. It's a mouthful, but it's all there, which is a complete reworking of the original book with numerous updated references, updated information, large numbers of QR codes linked to highly relevant websites and a multitude of topics. I'm hoping that book, my aim is for that book to either be as cheap as I can possibly make it or free. And I'm hoping to publish it in the next few months or so. And it's aimed directly at those young people in the throes of transition. So how do I make it free? I'm not sure yet. There's a lot's changed in the publishing world since my first book was published. So I'm not sure any publishers are going to want to give my book away for free. So I'm thinking about selling it online, where there'll be, if I can make it free, particularly the digital version, I'll make it free. If not, it'll be a minimum charge, probably as an administrative fee for whoever's going to be whatever platform I use to sell it. But in case you starting to think that this is just a plug or a sales pitch for my book, then I'm sorry to say that you're wrong. I still can't believe we don't have a plan for what to do with young people who either miss the boat after secondary school or get lost along the way. And they're good kids, they're smart kids, they're talented kids, they're kids with lots of ambition and lots of ideas, but not enough places for them to be able to deliver on their skills and ambitions and ideas. So, and that's the reason why we've got this vacant space in the transition area. The least I can do is put my book out there, put my vlogs out there, put my information on my website, which has got a whole page of valuable links to places where young people can go for information. I think that's about the best I can do, because as a concept, it doesn't exist at this point in time. I'm also worried about those young people who, until COVID struck, would have been living or working independently from their families, but because of the changes in their circumstances, they would have been forced to move back into their family homes. And I know there was a lot of young people that had to do that. And I think psychologically, that's a pretty tough thing for a young independent person to have to do, to firstly come to terms with the fact that they no longer have the means to support themselves. And then secondly, have to then swallow their pride and relinquish all their newfound and often hard-fought independence, moves towards independence, before thirdly, having to renegotiate an entirely new set of terms with their families in regard to moving back home, which for a lot of young independent people is always going to be, or would have felt like, a gigantic step backwards. And for those young people who may have been working pre-COVID in the hospitality and retail sectors in particular, two of the biggest employers of young people, the impact that COVID-19 has had on their options has been devastating. And my wife Jodie and I have 4 young adult children of our own who, along with their friends, have also experienced quite a few challenges along the way. So like most parents, we've got a vested interest in the topic, though in my case, I guess I've been able to come at it from a range of different angles. As a teacher, of alternate stream year 11 and 12, as an employer of dozens of young people over 30 years, as a job services trainer, as a consultant in the same industry, as an author who's written 2 books on the topic, as well as a TAFE or secondary school based Year 13 post-secondary transition concept. And as a lobbyist and self-appointed commissioner of transition who spent months lobbying government for change, but maybe I would have been better off just pissing into the wind. That's how it felt at the time. That being said, I promise you I'm not done yet, not by a long shot, and I've still got a lot to say in this space and to offer in this space. But just to be clear, I think it's important that people, but especially young people, understand that I'm not doing what I do because I think they need fixing or they're broken or there's something wrong with them. That's not even close to the truth. They don't need fixing, they're not broken, they don't have anything wrong with them. They are just young people who are products of their various environments and have a variety of characteristics, and it's wonderful to see so many varied personalities out there. What they really need at the moment is a more clearly defined or clear-cut method for gaining knowledge about the workings of the society that they live in, as well as the adult world that they're in the process of merging into. You don't do the things that I'm going to talk about and that I've written about. You don't study this stuff at school. And yet the most important thing that you'll probably ever do in your life is live. And the academic part of education does not cater for that. For a lot of young people, the second most important thing they'll do after that will become the most important thing, is to have children. And there's not much education in that sphere either, and I've always been confused about that. But anyway, that's exactly why I created and then wrote my post-secondary transition concept, which is available on my website if you're interested, under resources. Because despite the best efforts of some pretty dedicated people, groups and organisations that are sought to better educate our young people in the ways of the world, we're still yet to define a genuinely universal method for preparing our young people for their lives after they complete their secondary education. And I just, for the life of me, can't understand how that's come about. It's always amused me that we seem to be able to accept the fact that a toddler is going to fall from time to time, and we'll do everything we can to stop that from happening, and we'll put paddings on everything, and we'll fortify places, and we'll close them off from going into parts of the house. And yet we still seem to struggle with the stumbles that come during adolescence. And that's, in my opinion, I think we should be treating both with exactly the same degrees of compassion. You pick them up, you dust them off, but before you let them go again, you reassure them and let them know that succeed or fail, you're still going to be there for them, and you'll catch them if you can. But if they do fall, you'll be there to pick them up. My website is www.life-skills.com.au. That's also where you'll find more information about my books, my paper, my valuable links, my post-secondary transition concept. I've also made a couple of videos outlining my post-secondary transition concept back in 2015, and they're on my website as well. So if you're even remotely interested, then you could take a look at them. But in the absence of a mainstream government-sponsored post-secondary transition strategy, the best I can come up with at the moment is to write some books and create a website, but I have nowhere to practice the strategy that I promote. There's no place where it exists. There are small pockets in our communities where some like-minded people have done some pretty amazing things, but their programs are based on short-term funding, and they don't have longevity, and that they're not able to be duplicated across all sectors, all states. So the vlogs that I've got coming up in regard to transition are going to include a whole raft of topics and issues, both good and bad, that young people are guaranteed to encounter along the way. But one of my main concerns at this particular point in time is the mental health of our young people. It's like we're in the midst of a tsunami of mental health issues at the moment, particularly since COVID has overrun all our communities. So what I'd like to say to any young people out there that might be watching or listening is that if you're struggling right now, or you have been for some time, I want you to understand that there's no shame in what you're feeling. You also need to understand that you're not alone in this, and that there's a lot of people who want to help you, and a lot of places you can go to or call for help. Places where you can tell your story in complete privacy to people who are genuine and who care and who want to listen and want to help and have some resources with which to help you. All you really need to do is put up your hand so that they can see you, so that we can see you. And I know that's, statistically, that's the hardest thing for someone who's struggling mentally to do. I just wish you knew how many people out there are out there at the moment that are in your corner, barracking for you, and ready to listen at a moment's notice. So below this video, I've listed all the contact details for the organisations that you can go to for help. Just make sure, please, just take a look and know that we're here for you. If you're a young person and you're a bit confused or lost, one of the best things you can do to get your life in order is focus on the day-to-day management of your own life, starting with the little things, like managing your personal effects, your property, your money, your routines, your relationships, your responsibilities, the small stuff. You don't need to worry about everyone else's issues. You don't need to worry about national issues. You don't need to worry about international issues. Just go back to the small stuff, the things that you can control. That's the best way for you to take control of your personal circumstances. Start with the small things. I think it'd be fair to say that a lot of young people already feel that they have very little control of some pretty significant elements of their lives, or even none at all, but particularly during this COVID period. And what I've come to understand is that once a young person gets their personal effects and affairs in order, there's a growing of confidence. But there's also another effect that comes into play, and that is that they then start looking to take even more control of more of their circumstances, which is such a positive thing. And that's the beginnings of you becoming independent. Focus on the things that you can influence. Things as simple as the organisation of your personal spaces, the management of your commitments, the control of your money, where every cent counts. Every cent counts. That includes the care and maintenance of your belongings, because if you don't look after the things you own, that you already own, and they are damaged, you have to replace them. That's more money. You need the things that you need at the moment. You don't need the things that you want. You need the things that you need. In the meantime, you should also try your best to nurture your friendships and take note of your own personal health, which is part of, I guess, of showing respect for yourself. Because that's one of the first things that can be damaged when you have low self-worth or low self-esteem. You can lose respect for your own person. And so by showing respect for yourself, by doing a bit of exercise, by grooming yourself, by presenting yourself in your best light, is a way of maintaining your sense of self-worth while you rebuild the structures underneath you, while you do all these small things to take control of your life. By taking more control of the smaller components of your lives, I think in time you start to get a better idea of what the bigger picture looks like. But it's not something that you only need to think about once a week or a month. This is a daily thing. This is the thing you can do immediately to change some of your circumstances. You try and take control of the little things. And in essence, that's the cornerstone of my entire plan, to give you the tools, the understanding, the confidence to help you build your own rock solid foundations underneath yourself. Because once you have that foundation, it then becomes your safe space. It allows you to take more risks in the worlds of work and training and study as well, but also socially, because you have control over the things that you can control. It also means that you've got a much more secure place to land if and when you do happen to fail, which you undoubtedly will because we all fail, but you've built this secure base underneath you that you know when you fall back to that base, all the things around you are managed and are organised. And don't be afraid to fail, because failure from trying or participating or having a go or striving is a big part of everyone's learning experience, and sometimes it takes a long time to realise that. And I have failed at numerous things over the years, and because I've got a strong foundation under me and surrounded by people that care about me and that I care about, I've built that foundation by doing the little things early on, and that's my safe space. Failure is not the end of the line. It's just one of the steps along the line. Sure, sulk for a while, have a sook to your friends, get upset, question yourself, lash out, be sleepless. We all do it, but when we're done, we need to get up and go again. And I watched Grace Tame, the Australian of the Year, say the other day on national TV, I get up and I go again, because what else have I got to lose? What have I got to lose? Okay, enough of that. In my very next but very short vlog, I'll be outlining all the topics that I'm going to be releasing vlogs about over the next 6 months or so. And in the meantime, stay well, and hope to see you again. Cheers.